Welcome into the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com. I am Ben McKee, and I'm joined by former Tennessee baseball pitcher Will Heflin here on Thursday, April 16th at 9:45 p.m. Eastern. We are rocking and rolling and ready to go for another weekend of baseball at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. It's been a good week for the Tennessee baseball program. The vibes are high going into this weekend series against Ole Miss. They kick-started a 9-game homestand on Tuesday night with a win over UNC Asheville. They are on a 5-game winning streak after sweeping Mississippi State and taking care of business against UNC Asheville. We will dive into UNC Asheville later on in this first segment, and then in the second segment, we will preview Ole Miss, but need to get to some house cleaning notes before we dive into UNC Asheville and the Ole Miss series. But first, we got to check in on our guy, Will Heflin. Sir William, how are you?
Doing well, Ben. There is one thing that I need to do before we get started. You
get close to the mic. Get close to the mic. You got to get real close.
You did this last week. I'll let our listeners see what it is. No free promos, but free promo on this one.
Here, I'll join in. I don't have anything to crack, but
that's so good. And it brought us a sweep last week, which is even better. So
yeah,
we'll carry on that crusade.
Hopefully,
and if we win this series, then it'll be a thing, right? Like, this is still experimentation. And then if they win,
we may have an issue.
Why's that?
We cracked one in our reaction pod to LSU. We didn't do a preview pod for Mississippi State.
It counted as both.
If we're being totally honest, last Thursday was your birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
How old are you now? 34?
29.
Close. You were on the golf course, and that is not the reason we didn't choose to record. We were very much at the point of, okay, the LSU series happened. What are we going to say about this Mississippi State series? And if we're being totally honest, I think both of us chickened out because we didn't want to preview the Mississippi State series. If we're being totally honest, I think we both chickened out and used your birthday as an excuse.
We did plan to do it, but we were not persistent in setting a time or linking up or or circling back. Any corporate jargon you want to use to follow up, we didn't. And we let it be. So maybe we shouldn't even be here right now. We'll just call this Mississippi State reaction part 2. How's that?
Or we can we do have 2 Thursday night games going on tonight. Auburn is losing to Florida 6-3 as they enter the 9th inning. And then Arkansas, who's Arkansas playing? Georgia? They're in a commercial. They're coming back from commercial, but it's just a picture of beautiful Omaha. Arkansas is leading somebody. I think it's Georgia.
They are.
We could just sit. We could just sit here and react to these 2 games instead of previewing the Vols, and then maybe we win it.
Thursday watch party.
The Diamond. It just means more podcast. The Diamond SEC. It just means more podcast.
Yeah.
Arkansas up on Georgia 5-2 in the bottom of the 6th, which is. Look, we'll talk some other SEC stuff. Will and I are both determined to get out of here efficiently, so this is not going to help, but we're still going to do it, by gosh. We both have some other work that we need to do before we go to bed tonight. But in order to not preview Ole Miss and of course, distract us as we typically do here on the podcast and destroy our intent to be efficient and timely, the SEC standings, have you seen them this week? It is just a hodgepodge of teams. But why I say it's interesting between Arkansas and Georgia this weekend is because Georgia is 11-4 in SEC play, and they've separated themselves a little bit from the pack. Texas A&M, and Florida all have 9 wins, are all in the win column, 2 games back of Georgia, and then you have Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Ole Miss, 4 teams with 8 wins, and then even more teams with 7 wins. Kentucky, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. What is that? 5 teams with 7 wins, and then LSU has 6. Um, so who knows? Maybe Georgia comes back down to earth is the point that I'm getting to. And they've separated themselves a little bit by SEC baseball standards. Maybe Arkansas is able to bring them back into the pack. But pretty crazy how, what is it? The tied for second is at 9 wins, and the 14th place team is at 6 wins. 3 wins separate the teams tied for second and LSU in third to last. Pretty crazy.
It's a logjam. You're talking about over half the league within a game of 500 or at. I don't think anybody's at 500 because we've played an odd number of games. But 8-7 or 7-8 over half the league. That's crazy. You know what that's called, Ben? Balance, parity. Everybody thought Georgia would be good, but did you think Georgia would be 11-4 leading the league after our series with them? I didn't.
No, I did not. But what's crazy about the parity and balance this year is that there's parity and balance every year, but it feels like it's on steroids this year. The parity, it after watching Texas A&M beat up on Texas and Tennessee beat up on Mississippi State, I thought Mississippi State and Texas were kind of the two clear best teams in the league, but both of those teams got beat up on last weekend, and I don't know that there is a definitive best team. Let's just see who plays the best baseball this weekend.
Yeah, the best team is going to be the team that's playing the best in May, June.
Literally. That's good analysis right there.
Yeah.
That's good analysis right there.
It's actually deep. I know you're making a joke, but that's deep.
It is for sure, and you are spot on. But goes to show just how difficult this league. This is an all-season conversation, but I wonder why it's more balanced this year. Is it a one-off, or is this just a byproduct of the new era of transfer portal and NIL that we're in? That's kind of what we also ask in football and basketball, because SEC football and SEC basketball is pretty balanced as well.
More teams. Your most recent 2, Oklahoma and Texas, have been in the mix since they've been in the league. So that contributes. Yeah. And then the portal for sure, the nature of it, it's much easier to reload and be older and be competitive year in, year out. And also just kind of the way it was drawn up this year. I think part of it too is the schedule. Like, you're not playing the same teams every year. You don't have your solidified East opponents. You don't have, like, it's going to be more randomized now, I think. So it's kind of going to be a year in, year out thing where, like Texas last year, I think everybody thought they were good. Nobody thought they were head and shoulders above the rest. I know they didn't even end up with the 1 seed, but they were so clear out in front of the pack as far as record wise, because their schedule was really nice. Their schedule was very, very nice. It's like, you can't be mad at them. They just played the schedule they're dealt. But I think they're like, there's not an easy schedule in the SEC, but all of their top, like the top half of their opponents were all at home, and all their bottom half were on the road. So it's like, yeah, makes sense. But obviously they were a good baseball team. Like, they were top 5 either way. So,
and what you hope as a Tennessee fan is, A, you need to understand that you're going to take some lumps in SEC play, and you don't need to try and fire the coach after you take some lumps. You need to let it play out. But B, more so my point, is what you hope is that it just prepares you for the NCAA tournament. You hope that you rack up enough wins, get into the NCAA tournament. Hopefully you have positioned yourself well in the NCAA tournament, and you hope the scars that you have collected along the way that theoretically have made you better, and you've gotten better as a team over the course of the season, you hope that prepares you for the NCAA tournament. And after the SEC beats up on each other, then the SEC goes and beats up on others. And for the most part, you've seen that the last couple of years, I feel like.
I mean, yeah, that's a scientific fact. I mean, it was 2018 the last time an SEC team did not win, and that's nothing new, right? Like, this league has beaten up on each other for a long time now, really since the SEC kind of got serious about baseball and kind of shifted the power from the West Coast to the SEC with like the Skip Bertman in the 90s and kind of other teams following, or 80s and 90s, and other teams following suit. But it's like, and it's not like football where it's been majority two names there every year. Like you've had LSU twice, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt. There wasn't one in 21. So those are your last 6 schools to win it. You had the Oregon State one and then Florida. So 7 of the last.
There's one in 21. It was 2020.
I meant 20. I meant 20.
Yeah.
21 was Mississippi State.
Yeah.
So what is that? 8 of your last 9 national champions have been SEC schools and 7 different schools. That is balance.
Yes, that is balance. We'll see if
and that is battle scars. Like Ole Miss was the last team in when they won the Natty. Mississippi State was like the 8 seed. LSU was the 6 last year. Tennessee won it as the 1. LSU won it as the 3 in 23. It's crazy to me that team was the 3 seed, by the way. But Wake Forest was the 1 seed. That's who they beat. Obviously, Ole Miss was not a national seed. Mississippi State was barely a top 8, but they were. And then I'm trying to remember what Vanderbilt was up there, but they obviously weren't the number 1 seed. And then Florida, I believe, was like they were a top 5 seed the year that they won it. So it prepares you, but it's not just a run of number 1 teams. So
no. Did you there's another point that I was going to make, and I completely blanked on it because I just turned to the Dodgers-Rocky game, and Chase Dollander is almost through 5 innings, only giving up 2 runs to the Astros tonight. Attaboy, Doe. There was another SEC point that I was going to make, but we'll move on because we need to move on anyways. Last non-serious topic. Did you see the collision that happened in Cincinnati today? Did you see the matchup that we had? For those who don't know, this is my narrative, okay? This, for those who did not see, they've been under a rock today. They haven't been by their phone, but they're listening to this, probably listening on Friday. Shout out to my guy, Sam Smith. He told me to get the podcast posted. So I'm working on it, Sam, okay? I had to get Will off the golf course yet again. And don't worry, the Kyle Wright segment is coming up as a bonus episode afterwards. But did you see the collision? For those of you who did not see and have no idea what I'm talking about, this is my narrative, and this is all you need to know. Chase Burns of the Cincinnati Reds squared off against Tony Vitello, Frank Anderson, Quentin Eberhardt, Drew Gilbert. I don't think Blade Tidwell's up with the big boys right now. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, though. Q, Frank, Tony, Drew. Not Gavin or Maui or Blade yet. But here's all you need to know. There was that collision. There was that matchup in Cincinnati on Thursday.
Meeting
and
of
all
the
you
mind.
need to know. What's that?
Meeting of the minds.
Meeting of the minds. Here's what you need to know. This is my narrative. I'm sticking to it. You don't need to know anything else. That matchup ended in the benches clearing after the game. The facts of the brawl, you don't need to know them. All you need to know is we had that collision in Cincinnati. It ended with a brawl and the dugouts being cleared and emotions being spilled out onto the field. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know the fact that Drew Gilbert, Chase Burns, Tony Vitello, Frank Anderson, Quentin Eberhardt, Blade Tidwell, Maui Ahuna, Gavin Keelan. You don't need to know that none of them were involved in this. Just you need to know that the Reds and the Giants on the day that the meeting of those minds took place, it ended in a brawl.
And with that, to housekeeping.
To housekeeping.
I'm not disputing that. That's your narrative, you know?
That's my narrative, and I'm sticking to it. I think the biggest upset of my time covering Tennessee baseball is I told everybody who's been around the program every day, like I'm talking about my fellow media members, Sean Barrows, the SID, anybody who would listen. I said for all 3 years Drew Gilbert was on campus. From the moment I found out how absurd of a maniac Drew Gilbert is, I told everybody every single day. They're already annoyed with me 24/7. I understand that, but they were probably even more annoyed with me that I wouldn't shut up about this. But I predicted that Drew Gilbert would cause a a benches clearing brawl at some point, and that's the biggest upset I've seen during my time covering Tennessee baseball. Bigger than the Wright State stuff, bigger than the Clemson regional, bigger than Tennessee baseball going from bottom dweller in the SEC to national championship. The fact that Drew Gilbert did not cause a brawl during his time at Tennessee still baffles me.
Yeah, really didn't even get close. Like there were some others that were much more. I mean, there's not really brawls in college baseball just because you're giving away too much by doing something like that, but via suspension or worse, you just get ruled out ineligible or something crazy. But yeah, I'm trying to think back. Like Gilbert's worst stuff was with the umpires, not the other team. I mean, Gilbert's antics. I'll say this about Gilbert: he never really maybe slightly, but he never really directed it at the other team. Like, I mean, Beck flipped off his center fielder. That one's pretty hard to
He just blacked out.
defend. Yeah, he just blacked out. But Gilbert's was always like almost because I know him, he's just so on Mars that like he's not even thinking about the other team or anybody watching. Like he's just being Drew Gilbert. And so yeah, I think the umpires were more annoyed with or more on edge with Gilbert than any other team was. Like,
yeah, I feel you. I miss the Drew Gilbert days. Those were mighty fun. Stone Lawless has better days ahead because he has been cleared by doctors to be available this weekend. He had a procedure late last week and was not able to travel to Mississippi State because of it, but he has 2 fractures in his cheek from where he was hit by the pitch. It also fractured his nose, broke his nose, and he had to have surgery on the nose in order to help with the swelling in the face go down, something along those lines, in that order. And they didn't really know what the timeline was going to be until he had the procedure on his nose. He had the procedure on his nose, and he's been doing really well since. And so he took live AB here on Thursday, and he is going to be available to come off the bench this weekend. I'll be curious, am very curious to see how Josh Elander deploys Stone, A, because of the injury he's coming off of, B, how effective is Stone going to be getting back into the box. It does sound like he's going to wear, it doesn't sound like, I know, they've already got the softball face mask on the helmet for him. So very curious to see how Josh Elander deploys Stone because he's coming off such a traumatic injury. But B, like he's not going to be in the starting lineup, don't get me wrong, but obviously they're going to be working towards getting Stone back in the starting lineup, I would think. Like, what are you doing with Trent Grenlinger? What are you doing with Garrett Wright? What are you doing with Levi Clark? To me, that's a fascinating question. I'm curious to see how Josh handles that situation. But that's kind of an afterthought, so to speak. The more important thing is that Stone's doing really good. He's looking better. He's in better spirits. And he is able to play baseball this weekend, which is obviously a huge blessing after what took place.
Yeah, I'm surprised, honestly, that he's cleared already. I think they would be doing him a lot of favors if they made sure his first few at bats were off of lefties. Just in the off chance, you know what I mean? Like if a lefty typically hits a righty, it's not in the face. When you see righties get hit in the face, it's a right-handed pitcher where one just sails out of the hand, misses arm side, right? Like you'd have to really yank the heck out of it as a lefty to throw one at a guy's face. And I think as a hitter, you would see how weird that is right out of the hand and be able to at least turn. But I hope he gets at least an at bat, and it's not in like a super critical situation because I'd be stepping way out. I'd be stepping straight out if I'm Stone. I mean, he's a tough cookie though. I mean, he took live ABs today. I mean, goodness gracious, he's not facing, with all due respect, guys who are just lighting up the strike zone. Because if they were, we'd be watching them pitch, and they wouldn't be throwing on, you know,
The guys that throw on Wednesday or Thursday are typically your young guys who aren't
your
getting
young guys,
innings
yeah,
or your
and
guys that are redshirting.
they're probably got really good stuff, and it's not quite refined yet, you know. So
They have good stuff. No idea where it's going.
yeah, you know, those young guys. So no, I'm just happy for him. It will be interesting to see how Elander does navigate that, but there'll be some time. It'll take at least a couple weeks for him to get back in the flow.
Yeah, the initial timeline was 4 to 6 weeks, and what is this week, Mark, that he's coming back on? 3? Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it was the Vanderbilt series.
And then LSU was
Sunday,
next.
Vanderbilt.
Right. LSU was next, correct?
So under 3 weeks. Yeah.
LSU Sunday will be 3 weeks on the day. So the initial timeline was they thought the initial timeline was 4 to 6 weeks, and he's coming back in 2 to 3 weeks, which is a heck of a job by Stone Lawless. I'm very curious to see not only how Josh Elander handles the situation lineup wise, but very curious to see how Stone is able to perform, because if he is able to get back to playing the way he was before he got hit, then that is a heck of a development for Tennessee, because he was playing some really good baseball. He was one of their better overall players when he got hurt. So we'll see how quickly he's able to get back behind the dish and see how he is effective. But the baseball conversation of it is secondary. The performance aspect of it is all secondary. It's really cool to see Stone back, because that was a really scary situation. He's one of the big time leaders on this team, and so just happy for Stone on a personal level that he's starting to be able to put that behind him and get back to playing baseball, which is what I'm sure he wants to do. The other house cleaning note is that your boy Chris Newstrom is also back in the fold. Much different reason than Stone Lawless. Chris Newstrom did not travel to Mississippi State because of an internal issue. We talked about that in our reaction pod earlier this week. It was an internal issue, is how it was worded by UT, aka it was disciplinary for the weekend as to why he did not travel, and he was not handling business day to day the way that he needs to. He wasn't being the teammate that he needs to, and they've had many conversations with Chris, with Newey, and as we talked about earlier this week, it's up to Newey to hopefully take that moment and allow that to spark him in a positive way for it to really be a reality check. Because if you continue to do what you're doing, then you're not going to reach your full potential as a baseball player. And he'll have options to transfer somewhere, but like, what are those options going to be if the word gets out on you? So obviously, if you're Tennessee, you know how talented he is, and you really would love to utilize those talents. We've already seen how beneficial that can be in the UCLA game earlier this season. And obviously, he could be a big boost to a team that still needs it, even if it feels like they've taken a step forward with what they did at Mississippi State. But I think more so on an individual level, you don't want to see guys waste talent. And so you'd like to see Newey figure things out, start going about it the right way and doing what he needs to do. And if that Newey shows up, then that's a guy that's going to be hard to keep out of the lineup on a daily basis.
100%. I hope he gives him a pinch hit or something, just an opportunity this weekend in a spot, and kind of be like, all right, let's see if we the little pat on the backside, did something. Sometimes things work that way, and that's an early sign of Elander having a lot of feel as a head coach. If he's able to, because he knows how good Newey is. We all know. That's why we talked about him so much in the preseason. So hopefully this was a solution / good thing moving forward.
That's what you hope. Again, you know how talented he is, and they've had several conversations with him. They obviously had a form of discipline this past weekend, and so you take that. You hope that is a reality check for Newey, and he gets going. is what you hope, because he can still really help this baseball team. I feel like, because he is so talented, and he does have that grit and edge to him, and you can't ever get enough of that grit and edge that he plays with if used properly. So we'll continue to see how that plays out, and of course Tennessee's hoping it plays out positively, because he can really help this baseball team. Tennessee run ruled UNC Asheville 11-1 on Tuesday evening at Lindsey Nelson Stadium to kick off its 9-game homestand. We will talk about that win and also preview this weekend series against Ole Miss on the other side of this quick timeout here on the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com. Welcome back into the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com. I am Ben McKee, and I am joined by Will Heflin, former Tennessee baseball pitcher, here on a Thursday night, getting ready for this weekend series against Ole Miss. Should be a fun one. Tennessee and Ole Miss have had some fun series in the past. Last year's was especially fun, with Liam Doyle and Andrew Fisher going back to Oxford after they elected to transfer from Ole Miss to Tennessee the previous offseason. I don't know that we'll have those type of fireworks inside Lindsey Nelson Stadium. There will be fireworks, but I just think they'll be on the top of the roof and not on the field between the two teams. But Mike Bianco always has a good baseball team, and they will certainly present quite the challenge this weekend, especially with their first two pitchers that they're going to throw out against Tennessee. We will preview that matchup momentarily. First, we want to quickly look back on Tuesday's win over UNC Asheville. We'll start with Blaine Brown. He gets back on the mound for the first time in over a month, and he works a 1-2-3 inning. Faced three batters, got all three batters to ground out. Now, he did fall behind to the leadoff hitter, 3-1, and then got a ground ball. He fell behind the two-hole hitter, 2-1, still got a ground ball, and then he got the three-hole hitter to ground out on the first pitch. So the command a little shaky still. 5 through 10 pitches, 5 of them were strikes, and he fell behind each of the first two batters. I kind of touched on this on Monday's podcast, reacting to the Mississippi State series, Will. My theory is that there may be a little more sense of urgency to get Blaine on the mound, because, like, who is that lefty-lefty matchup that you can trust right now in the bullpen? Like, I know Appenzeller and Arvidsson are lefties, but they're not looking for a lefty in that sense. They're looking for a guy, in my opinion, who can come in and get a lefty out. Maybe there's a righty who has reverse splits that I'm unaware of or not thinking of, but I think they're still searching for an arm down there in the bullpen. I think they're just generally searching for another arm, and I think they could also use another lefty, settle on a lefty at least, that they can depend on to come in and get a lefty out if they find themselves in a critical situation late in a game against a lefty. So that's my theory. That's my conspiracy theory, is that there's a little bit of a sense of urgency to do that because of the need to deepen the bullpen, because, like, the guy's already struggling at the plate. If you're only going to use him in midweek games this year, like, why? I would think almost like if he's only a midweek arm, then just let him focus on hitting. He already has enough on his plate at the plate to begin with. Just let him focus on that. Don't have him worrying about other stuff. Or who knows? Maybe it's reverse psychology and focusing on a bullpen and trying to think of executing pitches and executing his fundamentals on the mound. Maybe that distracts him from hitting, and that's a good thing. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that hodgepodge of thoughts I just threw at you?
That last one was my thought. Kind of like the Levi Clark catching, opening up the bat. It's like, maybe let Blaine get back on the mound and kind of think about something else for a minute. But certainly your first thought is about, like, if you feel like you can trust him to go in and throw strikes to a couple hitters, I mean, he's mid-90s from the left side. That'll work. That's probably not worth giving up on, so maybe, if I think they were really kind of dead set on wanting to use him on the weekend for a spot or two, then they probably don't have the month layoff that they did, and they don't start him in the midweeks. You know what I mean? Like, they use him kind of in the 8th especially in some of those blowout games. Like, it wouldn't have hurt a soul for him to go out there and spray it for a couple of hitters if they were up, some of those ones where they pulled away in. But the other side of that coin is like, I think the last few weeks it was kind of like, let's just let him focus on hitting. And with his current kind of struggles, I think they're like, well, let's throw him back on the mound, take it off his mind. So you're always tinkering. That's certainly a way to tinker.
What I don't get is something that you talked about you don't like in the preseason when we were talking about the prospect of Blaine pitching is Josh Elander continues to say publicly that in order for him to throw, it would be bringing him in from left field to throw.
Yeah, that makes it tough.
That's how they would deploy him. So I don't really know how that would work. Like my thought from somebody who was not an elite pitcher like yourself at an elite level is does Blaine like truly get a chance to truly warm up like we see most pitchers do? Most pitchers, y'all got to get down there with your cute little bands and get those stretched out and spend 10 to 15 minutes doing your bands and then you got to throw your little weighted ball and then you got to throw the football and then you got to then you got to throw your flat ground and then you got to stand at the bottom of the mound and soft toss a little bit. Then you get like halfway on the dirt before you get to the mound, then you soft toss a little bit more, and then you get behind the mound and you throw hop, and they're throwing 2-3 throws as hard as you can at the bullpen catcher, and then you get on the mound finally, and you throw a little soft tosses from the mound, and then you finally start to throw. So, like, is that something that Blaine needs, as most pitchers do, or kind of reverse psychology, going back to my last point, like the fact that he doesn't have to do all that, does that help him coming in from left field to sit there and pound the strike zone? And that's what it comes down to. What is the best way to help Blaine throw strikes? Whatever they feel like is the best way to help him throw strikes, do that.
I'm just gonna let that slide. and since we're trying to be efficient, I'm not even gonna go down that path. I will say I'm not qualified for much, but this is something I'm qualified to talk about because I have ran from the bullpen straight to the on deck circle, taken an at bat, and ran back to the bullpen. But I was also a guy who didn't need whatever it was you just went through. I could throw 5 and be good, or I could throw do the whole routine like you said. I don't know. I think I'd be tired if I did everything you just said, but sound like a full game down there, to be honest. But some guys do that. It's crazy. It's crazy how things have changed.
And it seems like it's the guys, maybe I'm just doing the wrong stereotype here, but it seems like it's the guys that throw harder that typically do that too.
No, I think that's a generic misnomer. Usually it's the guys that spray it and are the biggest dome cases that take the longest because they're trying to, that golfer that hits 100 balls on the range trying to like find his swing essentially before he goes and plays. Those are pros. That's different. The weekend golfer that is like hitting 18 drives. It's like, brother, you're going to slice him whether you hit 10 more now or whether you go to the first tee. Like, it doesn't matter. It's kind of the same in the bullpens. Like, if you throw 50 pitches down there just trying to find the strike zone, it's like, I don't know how much this is going to do for you. But
tire yourself out too.
Yeah. No, I've seen some dudes throw absolute fuel who don't take that long to warm up there, Benny boy. Chase Burns was actually really good at the fire drill. He could get hot in a hurry. He was unbelievable. I know he's pitching well as a starter, but
he has a great bullpen arm.
He's got a long career as a bullpen arm if starting don't work out for him because maybe I just didn't pay attention, but it seemed like there were a couple scenarios where they went to him real quick and he just came in and let it rip. So
yeah, it's not necessarily how hard you throw. It's just every person's different. Everybody's body is different. Some guys take longer to warm up than others. And some guys never feel like they are truly warm, so they overcompensate and try to do too much. So I don't know. It's not. There's not an exact science.
The
I'm
warmer it gets,
fascinated.
the quicker it is too.
Yes, for sure. I'm just fascinated to see how that would actually work on a
I don't think
weekend.
we're going to see it anytime soon.
I don't either. And hopefully for Tennessee's sake, they don't have to try that anytime soon. Hopefully they can get Braden Krenzel ironed out. Braden looked better in the win over UNC Asheville on Tuesday night. Did run into a little bit of trouble. He pitched the top of the eighth, and he got a pop up to start his outing. Then he gave up a walk. Then he gave up a single. Then he threw a wild pitch. Runners advanced to second and third. And then he bounces back with a strikeout and a ground out to shortstop. So did a really good job of responding and working himself out of the jam that he created. I thought Josh Elander was really insightful post game as to what they're trying to work with Krenzel right now. And this is not somebody. I mean, if it's end of April, beginning of May, and like Krenzel's still struggling, then okay, at that point you probably shelf him. There is a point where you shelf him. They haven't reached that point yet because you know what the talent is. And again, you're still searching for more help in the bullpen. So you're trying everything you possibly can to get Krenzel going. I'll let you dissect for us commoners who have no idea anything about pitching at a high level what Josh's answer is truly saying. But I thought it was a really insightful answer as to what they're working on with Krenzel. He said that Josh Reynolds, the pitching coach, is working with him on the tempo of his delivery, like moving a little bit faster. Krenzel has a hypermobile arm, really whippy. So sometimes when guys get, we call it less me, or try to go A, B, C, D as a sequence instead of, hey, let's compete with conviction right here. That's kind of what they're working on with Krenzel right now. And Elander thought that he did a good job of even the ball hit the right field or the ground ball that was hit. It's not really loud contact, but that's a guy we're going to need in this league and midweeks. And the more we can get him out there, the better we just get to put them in good spots for positions to have success.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a lot to dissect. The tempo deal, I think I guess he could be early to his front side, which would mean he's kind of flying open, and then the release point is all over the place. But
seems to me like it would affect the release point if you're
yeah.
kind of not in control of your body or your arm angle, or not angle, but arm motion, then you're not in control of your release point, which obviously if your release point is off, you're going to spray the baseball.
Yeah, but I'm of the belief if you're really in control, then your tempo is the least important thing ever. I mean, look at people who pause at the top, kind of the quick pitch, the Johnny Cueto type deals. Like, what tempo do they have? They purposefully interrupt their tempo. So it's just a sequencing thing. I'm sure it's 90% or 50. What's the saying? It's like
90% mental, 10%.
It's like 90% mental and the other half is physical. It's something like that. So yeah, I mean, Krenzel just needs to get mouthwash outings. The more of those, the further away from the.
We said what he needs to do.
Yeah, no, we did. We spent a lot of time on the reaction pod earlier this week talking about what Krenzel needs to do, because whatever saying there was about Krenzel earlier, I can't even remember. Heckle and Jide or something.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde. Well, it was close. Yeah, that's the Serrano conversation, the Pedro Serrano conversation. But we included Dave and Kyle in the whole 9 yards. So
yep,
just go listen to that. If we can't go through that whole thing again. But
no.
yeah, Krenzel needs to be a factor. It's again, he's like Blaine. He better not be pitching this weekend if they want to win the series.
Well, he might find himself on the mound. He was warming up.
Not if things go to plan. Look at Mississippi State. I mean, seriously, with all due respect, I know Krenzel was supposed to be like the guy you go to on the back end, or at least one of them, but he's not right now. So if he's in the game, things have not gone to plan, and that's just fact.
You're correct. It's also a fact that who closed out the Sunday game? Bo Rudy. Braden Krenzel was warming up while Bo Rudy was closing it out. So yes, something has gone wrong if Krenzel is in the game, but unfortunately for where Tennessee's bullpen is at, Krenzel is higher than he would be in a deeper bullpen. That's also a fact. He was warming up, ready to come in if it got a little hairy on Bo Rudy. If that third game was going to extras, Braden Krenzel was coming in. So he's a guy that Tennessee needs, and they'll continue to try to work those kinks out of his mechanics, I guess is the right way to say it. But we will also continue to monitor that situation like we do all situations with Tennessee baseball. Taylor Tracy got back on the mound. His command looked better. It was a good night for the Tennessee pitching staff. Blaine Brown, Taylor Tracy, Will Haas, Ethan Bioto, Brady Frederick, Braden Krenzel. They combined to give up 0 earned runs. Brady Frederick did give up a run, but it was not earned. It came after, I believe, a Henry Ford throwing error, but no runs allowed, earned runs allowed. 4 walks, 1 apiece for 4 guys, only 4 strikeouts, 5 hits. So a decent outing for the Tennessee pitching staff against a UNC Asheville team that it should have a good outing against. Offensively, not a whole lot stands out. Trent Grenlinger continues to impress. He had 2 hits and an RBI. Garrett Wright is red hot right now. He was 2 for 4 with an RBI, 2 doubles, 2 runs scored. But Manny Marin, he is the guy that is in fuego right now. He is absolutely on fire. He drove in 6 runs. He hit in the 6th inning with the bases loaded, hit a 2-run double, hit in the 7th inning with the bases loaded, and hit a grand slam. So Manny Marin, he stays in fuego on Tuesday night.
Grand slam, baby.
Grand salami. Tennessee's going to need that this weekend when it faces a Ole Miss pitching staff that as I said off the top, is very, very difficult to deal with. They are a handful, the first 2 pitchers that Ole Miss is going to throw at Tennessee on Friday night. Tomorrow night, it'll be lefty Hunter Elliott, who his ERA is a little misleading. It's still fine. 3.69, but he's better, much better than a 3.69 ERA. And then on Saturday, they're throwing sophomore righty Cade Townsend, who is 3-1 with a 2.02 ERA. So you've got two really good pitching matchups to lead off the weekend on Friday and Saturday, which, newsflash, sounds like a weekend in the SEC. What do you have on Townsend and Elliott? Elliott's been around for a minute.
Yeah, Elliott's been there, and he's good. He's been good. He's a competitor, tone setter dog on Friday night. He's a typical SEC lefty FNG Friday night guy. Ole Miss, from the times I've watched him a little bit. Watched him against Southern Miss, which felt like a weekend game, although it was a midweek. Southern Miss is really good if you haven't kept up with them this year. And then one of their earlier SEC series. Ole Miss's bullpen is really deep. They've got some really nice arms on the back end of that bullpen. It's not as offensive as Ole Miss has been recently. I'm expecting a low-scoring, well-pitched series. Elander did say, and it does seem to be this way, that the weather has kind of shifted at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Like, the wind has blown in all year. And he said this week was kind of the first time where they saw it shift a little bit. And if
it was still blowing in on Tuesday.
Well, this was this morning on John and Vince's show. He was talking about how they were looking at it, and it's supposed to play more like what people, give Lindsey Nelson a hard time for being, because he's played anything but small this year. I mean, really. So it could be a bit more offensive if the wind is nice and the weather's nice. There's been some spotty showers today, and I think there's some more random stuff tomorrow. But for the most part, should be a good weather weekend. And if it's warm and the wind shifts, it could be more offensive. But Ole Miss's staff is good. Like you said, Elliott's ERA is a little misleading, but he's certainly not stuff-wise like they saw last Friday with Valencius, however you say it. But he's a really good pitcher, and so their power guys are kind of on the back end. Just a lot of hard sliders and ride carry heaters top of the zone. It's always kind of been that way the last few years under Bianco. So we'll see.
And Ole Miss comes in riding some momentum, just like Tennessee is. They got off to a little bit of a slow start to SEC play, but has responded nicely the last couple of weeks. They swept LSU in Oxford last weekend, and seems like the offense has been the difference for Ole Miss in terms of why it got off to a slow start. Struggled with situational hitting, which I know that sounds familiar, and prior to the LSU series, they were hitting 212 in conference play. 212 in conference play before LSU. Last weekend against LSU, they hit 348. So was that a fluke, or was that a talented Ole Miss offense finally waking up? What's your thought in that regard? Tennessee's going to have to do a good job of they do have some thump in the lineup. Tennessee's going to have to do a good job of keeping Ole Miss in the park, but curious to see if that LSU weekend was fluky or the beginning of something for Ole Miss.
More fluky. I mean, LSU's got lots of bullpen problems. We saw it in their Vanderbilt series. Tennessee wasn't necessarily able to take advantage of it, but I mean, I'm sure they've gotten better as they've gone along. They still got some gosh, I can't think of the dang third baseman he was one of their big hitters last year.
Federico?
No. I'll look that up. I think it's a little bit fluky, but they're not going to hit 212 the whole year with metal bats and the talent that they always have.
For Tennessee, the bullpen is going to have to. I mean, it's pretty simple in terms of keys to the weekend. Like the offense has to continue to build off of what it did last weekend at Mississippi State, and the bullpen. I mean, that to me, that's just kind of going to be the tail of the tape for Tennessee the rest of the way. Is like
Judd.
That's right.
Mark.
That's right. He's a good player. I like him.
He's their big power guy. Let's see how many bombs he has this year. I know he got to
13.
Yeah, he got over 20 last year. So,
and he does not lead the team with 13. Tristan Becerra, their right fielder, has 16.
Without cheating, do you remember where he transferred from?
Nope. Murray State.
Clemson.
Good for them. He was good on Tuesday night against Southern Miss. 4 for 5, 2 doubles, a home run, 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored. So Tennessee is going to have to tame that Ole Miss offense that got really hot last week against LSU. Scored 26 runs against LSU, had 32 hits against LSU. Both were season highs in an SEC series for Ole Miss this weekend. And as I was saying, the tail of the tape for Tennessee the rest of the way is, does the bullpen hold up? If the answer is yes, then Tennessee's going to have success. If the answer is no, then they're going to lose series. To me, it's that simple. Of course, the starting pitching needs to hold up, and the offense can't fall flat on its face and be an automatic out every inning. But just like generally speaking, if the bullpen holds up like it did last weekend, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, generally speaking, if you score runs, you'd be fine. But yeah,
that's true.
Bullpen is certainly important. I still say length out of the starters because that's going to take weight off your bullpen, and that's been your strength. So rather than trying to, I don't know, ask for more out of the area that's been struggling, if you will, just make it easier on them and just be able to use your top few guys. It's a two-way street. I get it. Like, you have guys down there that you need to pitch better, but it's like, if they don't have to pitch, that's a pretty good recipe.
It is. I think 3 bullpen arms is not sustainable. And like, I totally agree with what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. I totally agree. But Tennessee has gone into the 8th inning leading or tied in how many straight games? 11 as of Sunday. That tells me that you are absolutely correct, and I absolutely agree with you with what you just said. But on the flip side, that tells me the fact that they've gone into the 8th inning leading or tied in 11 straight SEC games. That tells me that the starting pitching is doing its job and the offense is doing a good enough job. Not perfect, can certainly be better, but they're doing enough to put Tennessee in position to win.
No.
And who's been letting them down?
No, they were tied because of the pitching in most of those games. They're top of the league in pitching, Ben, bottom of the league in hitting. We can't say the pitching has to pick it up. Respectfully.
I said
No,
the
you said
bullpen.
I know, but
why is the pitching at the top half of the league?
I'm looking at the entire
It don't work like
defense.
that. Why is the pitching in the top half of the league?
Because of your starters and two of your bullpen arms. It's a combination. You're at the bottom
Brandon
of the
Arberson
league
has
because
not
you're
been Brandon
hitters.
Arberson until
Nobody
last
else.
weekend.
Do what? He had his numbers were fine. His outing prior was bad. But it wasn't like his numbers were just
they
detrimental
weren't
to the team.
outrageous, but they were not as good as what we expect from him or what he pitched last weekend.
100%. But your 3 and 4 hole were combining to hit 400 when you add them together in SEC play. So it's like, yeah.
Look, I agree with you. The offense.
And I agree with you about the bullpen, but it's like if we could have scored 1 run in the damn 15-inning game, maybe we wouldn't have imploded on Sunday.
1,000%. That's a big reason they won at Mississippi State. I highlighted that on Monday, that a big reason why the bullpen had an easier time is because the
complimentary baseball.
Yes, the offense gave them insurance runs. The offense could certainly be better. But with the offense doing what it did the first 4 weeks, the bullpen was blowing the games. The offense did enough on Sunday at Vanderbilt. Did enough Sunday at LSU before extra innings.
Sunday is the only game. Sunday is the only game you can entirely say it was the bullpen. Sunday against Vanderbilt. That's the only one.
The only one? The whole season?
The only one, Ben.
No,
all of those other ones were like 4-run, like 3-3, 2-2.
I never said it was only the bullpen's problems.
I'm just saying.
I just think that they had the majority of the blame. I didn't say they were the only one causing the issues. The offense needs to perform as well.
I'm not even willing to give you majority. I'll say 40-60 split.
I think you're just being biased as a former pitcher.
No, I'm not. I'm usually tougher on the pitchers, but the offense was atrocious.
It had been. I'm not denying that. My thing is the pitching has been even more atrocious, in my opinion.
No,
what do I know?
That's not what the numbers say.
Yes, but all right, let's do. But when I'm saying pitching, I'm not talking about starting pitching. They need to be their own two things because they are their own two things. Starting pitching, your starting rotation is totally different than your bullpen. When I say pitching, I'm not talking about the starting rotation. When I say pitching, I'm talking about the abysmal bullpen that Tennessee has had up until the Mississippi State series.
I'm just saying if they had been able to put up an insurance run or two every now and then, you're probably not feeling that way about the bullpen, but they had no margin for error. And guess what? The other team is trying too, and they give up a couple runs. You think Kirby's squad bullpen never gave up a couple runs?
They did. I watched.
They gave up a ton. They gave up a ton of runs, but guess what? They had a ton of insurance. They had so much insurance. They had whatever the maximum life insurance term policy could possibly be. They won games at Kentucky giving up 14 runs, and we were like, oh, wow. They got in there and competed. They got hammered, but they were throwing strikes. It's like.
Well, I don't know who was saying that. I wasn't saying that.
We blew a 3-2 lead. Oh, blame the pitchers. No. Not doing it. Sunday against Vanderbilt is your one qualm. If you score under 6 runs as an offense, especially when it goes to extra innings, it's the offense's fault. With metal bats in 2026, when the balls are wound the way they are, 5 runs ain't going to cut it.
You've got some amnesia because the bullpen has blown multiple 3-run leads.
That happens for every team. And guess what? The offense has got to keep playing. When you take it, you can't get a 3-run lead in college baseball and just go to sleep. That will never hold up.
1000%. I
Doesn't
never
matter
said
what bullpen you have.
I'm not taking up for the offense. I just think the bullpen has been worse.
It's just not a factual take. That's why I'm arguing you, even though we need to get off here. Because the rankings in the SEC will tell you that Tennessee ranks lower as an offense than they do as a defense.
Pitching staff. That is absolutely true, that the pitching staff numbers look better than Tennessee's offense. Now, what I want you to do is separate the bullpen's numbers and compare the bullpen's numbers to the offense's numbers, because we're not talking about the pitching staff as a whole. We're comparing the woes of the bullpen to the woes of the offense.
You can't pick and choose. Like
you
can't say, "Oh, Tennessee's
I trust
defensive
ends.
Tennessee's defensive ends get sacks, so we're not going to include them when we're talking about the rest of the defense." It's like, what? You can't take out the best part of a unit and then be like, that unit sucks.
So you're telling me the starting rotation and bullpen are not two separate units?
No, it's just pitching staff.
All right.
You've had Arvidsson start and be in the bullpen. So which one is he? Coons has numbers as a starter and as bullpen. So are you excluding his bullpen outing because he starts?
No, I'm including his outings as a bullpen to the bullpen stats, and I'm including the starts to the starters stats, because that's how the stats work.
Oh, now you're worried about the stat. Now you're acknowledging the stats. Okay.
Well, you're ignoring the stats of the bullpen, which is the only thing I highlighted.
No. I'm just including them in the overall picture because I'm zoomed out.
But like, my concern is the bullpen, not the starting rotation. So we'll
when you're talking about concerns, yeah. But I think if we're comparing, I'll look at the entirety.
The fact of the matter is Tennessee was able to sweep Mississippi State because it was able to add insurance runs and because the bullpen was able to close out the game. So I can disagree and say that I'm more concerned about the bullpen than I am the offense, but at the end of the day, both are going to have to execute like they did at Mississippi State in order for the team as a whole to have success continuing moving forward.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I was just arguing for arguing's sake. Bullpen has got to be better, and the offense.
Yeah, the offense has to be better as well. So they will look to do that this weekend against Ole Miss. I think it's a good opportunity for this team to stack up some wins here. Not that it'll be easy, not that Ole Miss is a pushover, but I feel like you should beat Ole Miss on your home field. I feel like you should beat Alabama next weekend on your home field. And Kentucky has been a tough place to play at times for Tennessee, but I think they should be able to handle business there if you are the team that you want to be. So a good opportunity for Tennessee these next couple of weeks to right a couple of their wrongs from early in the season, and it starts this weekend against Ole Miss. Will be on the call Friday night with John Wilkerson on the radio. So if y'all are not able to watch, make sure you tune in and listen to John Wilkerson and Will Heflin on the call on Friday night. First pitch is at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. First pitch Saturday is at 6 o'clock. And first pitch Sunday is at 1 o'clock. All three games will be on SEC Network Plus. William, enjoy the call with the GOAT, John Wilkerson, and appreciate you putting up with me. And thanks for your thoughts.
Always a pleasure, Ben. Let me know where you want to grab some food before the game tomorrow, and I'll see you at the park. Meet.
Sounds like a plan to me. For Will Heflin, I'm Ben McKee. This has been another edition of the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com.